Welcome to this week's panel where we're talking about do-it-yourself home renovations, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be trying. Joining me from the Victorian Building Commission, Dennis Hogan, from the REIV, as usual, Robert Larocca, and David Hallett from Archicentre. Now, David, you're the man on the ground out there. What are people doing? Is there common things they're doing, or are people getting worse at DIY? Because we all think we can do it.
Yeah, look, the biggest problem with DIY is people perhaps not understanding how complicated building work is. And whilst a lot of people will be very enthusiastic about it, fuelled, of course, by a lot of the renovation shows that we're seeing on television, which are fantastic for ideas and tips, but of course, behind the scenes, it's a pretty complicated process.
Oh, I don't know, on the block they were running around kicking the footy, doing all sorts of things, and they build a house in the meantime.
On the weekends, that's right. No, look, it is a complicated process. There's a huge difference between decoration and renovation. Decoration is polishing floors, maybe pulling out kitchen cabinets, putting in new ones, that sort of thing. But renovation is really building work, and you're in a whole different territory then.
Dennis, is this your experience at the Commission?
Yes, definitely does. And there's so many, as David said, it is a complicated, or it can be complicated, depending on what type of building work it is that you're actually undertaking. But there's also a lot of trades to coordinate. There's a lot of different methods to actually go through. Which trades do I need on site? Which ones am I going to use? How much am I going to do to myself? If I'm going to do all of it, or as much as I possibly can, and do I have the knowledge and the skills to be able to do that? And the equipment as well, because you need storage, the right equipment to actually undertake the work. And that's only just the start of it, if you like. And I suppose the issue with the renovator type shows is you only see what you see. It's the other work that goes on behind the scenes that's probably the difficult work that you don't see that then becomes complicated for the owner builder doing it themselves.
You need a hell of a lot of time, don't you, to do that?
You need time, absolutely. You also need skill. If you're going to be organising these 10 or 15 tradespeople that are going to come in through the process, you need to know what order they come in, what they're each going to be doing, how much they're going to be charging you, what you're going to be up for. So you need to be able to manage people, you need to be able to manage resources and money.
I think people really fall into two types of people when it comes to looking at renovating your own home. There's those that shouldn't go near it, and there's those who get a lot of enjoyment out of it, know what they're doing, and you need to know which one of those categories you fall into.
Where do you fall into, Robert?
Oh, don't go near it with a 10-foot pole. We moved house more recently rather than renovate the house we were in, because really it's a lot of work, it can be very complicated, and it can be very costly if you don't do it properly. So really, planning, forethought is key to the process.
And Rob's right, it's not for everybody. DIY is not for everybody, and Rob's identified he'd prefer not to go there. Other people, as David's described, if they think they've got the knowledge and the time and the skills, and the time really is the critical one that David talked about before. If you're working full-time and you've got to still be there and the trades need to be on site, you've got to be able to manage that and manage your work as well as the home life as well.
But that's the trouble, isn't it? All these TV shows do, and it is a case, we keep coming back to it, but it's the case now we're bombarded with this idea that you can do it yourself, which can end up costing you more money. Is there one story that sums up people's naivety when it comes to things like this for you?
Look, I think there is. I was presenting a seminar some years ago and I had a question from a heavily pregnant woman in the audience who was thinking about taking on the renovation project as an owner-builder after the baby was born because she would be at home and she would have lots of time on her hands.
First child, David.
First child and first building project all at the same time.
Probably now, the last one as well.
Good luck to anyone who wants to tackle that. But
plenty of time during the night to do a bit of
a bit of painting, perhaps.
Yeah,
but that really indicated to me perhaps a bit of naivety about how complicated this was going to be, and as Dennis said, how much time you actually need to commit to running a building project.
If you're inspired by the renovators or those programs, I think you need to take one step further and watch that Grand Designs program, because they actually accurately show some really great examples of people who know what they're doing, but also the pain. You see some projects stretching on for months and expenses doubling and people sitting at home, hands in their head, worried about it.
But this comes back to what you said, Dennis, that people, I would imagine, the important part is not the actual renovation, it's the 12 months before you do it, arming yourself with knowledge, because that's it's once you start, well, that's when everything can
That is the important thing, Des. You have to plan, and plan meticulously for it. Educate yourself as well, especially if you have no knowledge at all. And Robert's described his experience. If you have no knowledge, you need to get that knowledge. You need to do some reading. You need to get some literature about all the various aspects and what sort of a building are you building as well. So it relates to the building you're going to construct as well.
What is the most common area, amongst the rules and regs that is contravened, that you are constantly the biggest headache, I guess, for the Commission?
Well, probably the quality of the work, I suppose, at the end of the day, and people understanding what the requirements actually are, and where do I go to get the information. They're the key ones, especially in the planning stage. Who do I go and talk to? Not everyone can ring David Hallett. His phone's only got limited time, but you need to know where to go. Where are the professional people? Where are the registered practitioners? And I can go get the information, so I'm actually advised and I know and informed of what I need to do then.
People need to respect their home as well. I mean, you think about your house, it may cost a couple of $100,000 or more, and if you start making modifications to it that are not properly planned, thought through and executed, then the problem is that you may be reducing the value of that home when it comes to the sale process, because you've got to have it all done properly. Otherwise, people are going to find that out when they're looking at the home or getting it inspected. They may not want to buy it at that point. So, take care of your property. That means doing these things properly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we would say to anyone who's thinking of renovating, whether they're doing it themselves or whether they're getting someone to do it for them, do it yourself by all means, but don't build a bad building. Build a good building. Make sure it's well designed, make sure it's built properly, make sure you look after it well, make sure you've got all the permits that you're supposed to get in place. We would see that as one of the biggest problems. People perhaps either not realising they need to get permits for certain sorts of building work, or realising it and perhaps ignoring the need for them.
And the other important thing, Des, is with the planning, is to get yourself a good draftsman or a good architect in the first place. Because you need to, they understand the regulations, what's required. It's not always you have to go to the council to get that information, because a lot of the building permits, most of the building permits in this state are issued by private building surveyors, but the council can certainly assist you and advise you. But if you've got the right drawings in the first place, as you know what you can build and what the requirements actually are, you're at least halfway there at least with that information.
And getting some early advice around what you can and can't do is very valuable, because there's no point embarking on a project that is in breach of the building regulations or is structurally unsound for one reason or another.
So early advice, so when you're walking in the house and you're looking to buy it and you're waving your arms around and saying, well, knock that wall out and knock that wall out, that might be the time to get the costing advice.
That's probably a very good time to get some early advice.
Yeah.
All right, David, final word to you, because you are out there at the coalface. Anyone thinking of renovating, the first thing they should do, or doing it themselves?
We would always suggest to people that doing it yourself is fine, but don't go it alone.
Have someone, have a good partner by your side.
That's right.
And a builder you can trust.
And an understanding bank manager.
Exactly. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us this week. Hope that's been helpful. If you're about to embark on a job, remember what they said.